Okay, so let's say you're just trying to enjoy some good old YouTube national anthems. Let's also say that you want the full 2000s experience by listening to it in Windows Media Player 12, now known as Windows Media Player Legacy. So now you're just melting back into your seat, enjoying the pretty visualizations until the song transitions when suddenly the visualizations stop. What's going on? You click the previous button and you find that the visualizations come back. So you try to relax again, but once again, the song transitions and the visuals stop again. How am I supposed to be properly immersed in my 2000s nostalgia when a core feature of it keeps dying? Now, one workaround is we could just keep hitting next before the song ends. Let's try that, you know? Let's hit next. Oh, look, it's still working. Try it again. It's still working. But who's going to be doing that? Most people are going to want to lay back and just enjoy the visualizations working automatically as they should. But at some point, Microsoft broke this. And by some point, I mean at least dating back to January 11th, 2021, as we can see in this forum post on the Microsoft website. Windows Media Player visualizations stop working after each song. And here they're going to describe the exact same thing that I just showed to you. But luckily, the second reply here is going to help us narrow down where the problem lies. As we can see here, they had a backup habit. And because of that habit, they were able to narrow down that it stopped working on version 2004, and it was approximately last working on version 1909. A lot of other people have come up with suggested fixes. Some people have decided that maybe they can replace the exe file, like this guy. But he updated it and said that it didn't work and switched to foobar. Can't blame him. Another person suggested that it's the mpviz.dll, which on some setups it's WMP-viz.dll. But that also didn't do it. A lot of people are begging Microsoft to fix this. Good luck with that. This person suggested that you should make a single track recording out of your single tracks on your album, so that instead of having 13 or so single tracks, they're all one big file, so that the visualizations keep working from start to finish. Now, that's one way of going about it, but, you know, I like having individual tracks instead of single track recordings. This person suggests that it's Windows Media Player 12. A lot of people are suggesting that it's specifically Windows 10 and Media Player 12, but I'll get to that in a bit. I'll show you what the real issue is. So we have more people suggesting certain fixes, and these don't really go anywhere. A lot of people are just suggesting use foobar. A couple people suggested changing the default sample rate. Trust me, that's not going to do it. And then the last post on this thread, this guy reverted back to 1909 and it fixed it. Okay. They think that they should stick to that version for now. And that was 5 years ago, give or take. That's not viable these days. It is, one, a massive security risk to stay on an older version of Windows like that, unless you know what you're doing. And two, it doesn't really fix the problem. It kind of just bypasses the fact that Microsoft broke this. Now, I have another person here who made a Reddit thread who they suggested, again, to switch the WMP-viz.dll from an older Windows Media Player onto a newer one. And they even made a video for it, but after watching the video, I'm not exactly sure what their problem initially was, because what they were showing was basically what I just showed you now, where it works when you click next or previous. But the issue that everybody else is having is that when you play the song and let it transition normally, as one would naturally do when listening to music, it just dies. And obviously, it's going to work if I just keep hitting these buttons. But nobody's going to do that. So, what is the fix here? Well, going off from what our second reply in this thread stated, build 1909 was the last time that it was working correctly. Luckily, there is a version of Windows 10 1909 on the Internet Archive. Now, this is one way of going about it, but hopefully I should have a link ready for people to download in the description. So you won't have to go through this process. But this was roughly the process that I had to go through, being a friend, to get the proper file in order to actually fix the player. So what is the fix? Here I have mfcore.dll. This DLL was extracted from this specific build of Windows 10 Pro, version 1909, build 183631139, which is slightly newer than the build that this person cited, which is 18363.778. So, relatively close, probably just a few updates away. This mfcore file was extracted from that version of Windows. Now, this file actually lives within the system files of Windows, rather than the media player files. However, for the purposes of our fix, we will be placing it in the Windows Media Player folder. So, it's a really simple fix. You simply go to whichever drive your operating system is on. So for me, it's the C drive. And you're going to go to Program Files x86. Not Program Files. There is a Windows Media Player folder in here, but this is a 64-bit version that is not used. You want Program Files x86. So we're going to go in here, and let me just close Windows Media Player before I do that. And we're going to go here, and we're simply going to paste that mfcore.dll file in here. And then I'm just going to grab my YouTube National Anthem playlist. I'm just going to add it to the player. And now, when I let the songs transition, the visualizations remain functioning. I no longer have to hit the previous or next buttons. They simply work as intended. So just to show a little bit more, I am not clicking next, I am not clicking previous. I am letting the songs transition naturally. It is working as it has worked for the last 20 years. But that being said, what exactly happened here? Well, if we go back to our little mfcore.dll file, my working theory is this. During Windows build, or rather Windows version 2004, so Windows 10 version 2004, they updated this mfcore.dll file. And when they updated that file, it broke the functionality that allowed Windows Media Player to maintain the visualizations during a song transition. And because of that, by placing this older mfcore.dll file, and don't worry about that date there, I had to get this out of a virtual machine, by replacing the older file into the Windows Media Player folder, the program will instead call upon this DLL rather than the one that naturally resides in the system folders. As a result, you have the old functionality while not breaking newer functionality that the rest of your computer is going to be needing the new mfcore.dll for. Do not replace the mfcore files in your system files. Simply drop the older file that I'm going to provide into the Windows Media Player folder, and that is all you need to do. You do not need to do what this user did, where they had to change permissions for certain files, which is a big risk because you can break a lot of things doing that if you don't know what you're doing. All you have to do is drop the file provided into the Windows Media Player folder, and your visualizations should work again. They have been broken for the last 5 years. Microsoft, instead of just somehow just bundling in this mfcore.dll into Windows Media Player, they decided that they really want people to use Groove or whatever crap they're selling nowadays. Well, I'm sure it's free, but it's still crap. You might as well pay me to use that. But Microsoft has never fixed it. A lot of the Microsoft support people who replied to this thread replied with the most useless advice of all time, which is pretty on brand for Microsoft. And the way the solution was even figured out is that me and a friend had to essentially create scripts and reverse engineer the older build of Windows to figure out exactly which file the media player required for the visualizations, and then isolate that file, and then extract that file, and then make that file publicly available. That's what it took to fix it. And in the last 5 years of this being an issue, it was not fixed. It took me being bored, asking one of my friends, a dear friend of mine, to help me figure out a solution for this. And we managed to solve this 5-year-old issue in a matter of hours. I gotta thank her a lot for that. But all that said, I hope that people find this video useful. I hope that people can make their visualizations work in Windows Media Player again. And I hope that it extends the life of this program just a little bit longer. Because I don't think that programs should be rendered obsolete simply because a giant $1 trillion corporation breaks things with no regard for its user base, and then decides that they want to shove a crappier version of that same program down your throat. I don't believe in that. I believe in right to repair, and software is something that we ought to have the right to repair. And I hope that this fix that me and my friend came up with can help you keep this program going. And maybe the method that I described today can be used to keep other old programs going. So that all said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can get your Windows Media Player working again. And I'll see you around later.